My children sold my property while I was in surgery. The voicemail. Mr. Jackson, I'm calling to confirm the sale of your condo downtown. The paperwork was signed by your children while you were in surgery. Congratulations on closing. My heart, stitched and stapled only hours ago, nearly gave out again. Wherever you're watching from, you're part of this story. Share your place in the comments and stay with us for more voices, more places, more stories. I woke to the sterile hum of machines, the faint antiseptic sting in the air, and the heavy weight of my own body refusing to cooperate. My chest burned with every shallow breath, a reminder that the surgeons had been inside me, tinkering with the fragile machinery of a 70-year-old heart. The nurse's voice was soft, reassuring, but my mind was elsewhere. My phone, left on the bedside table, blinked with a new message. I pressed play, expecting a kind word from my children. Instead, a lawyer's voice filled the room. Mr. Jackson, I'm calling to confirm the sale of your condo downtown. The paperwork was signed by your children while you were in surgery. Congratulations on closing. My heart, stitched and stapled only hours ago, nearly gave out again. I lay there, stunned, staring at the ceiling tiles that seemed to stretch endlessly above me. My condo? Sold? I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't even discussed selling it. That condo was more than bricks and mortar. It was the last piece of my wife's memory, the place where we had celebrated anniversaries, where she had laughed at my stubbornness, where she had whispered her last words before the cancer took her. And now, without my consent, it was gone. The nurse noticed my trembling hands and asked if I needed more pain medication. I shook my head. Painkillers couldn't touch this kind of wound. I thought of my children, Michael, my eldest, always ambitious, always scheming. Sarah, my youngest, sweet but easily swayed. They had been at my bedside before the surgery, promising to take care of everything. I had trusted them. Now, trust felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I replayed the voicemail, hoping I had misheard. But the words were the same, cold and final. Confirm the sale. Signed by your children. I tried to sit up, but the nurse pressed me back down. Mr. Jackson, you need rest. The surgery was successful, but your body needs time. Rest? How could I rest when my life had been dismantled while I was unconscious? The hours crawled by. I stared at the phone, waiting for another message, another explanation. None came. My children didn't call. They didn't visit. Instead, I was left alone with the echo of betrayal. I closed my eyes, and memories of my wife flooded in. Her laughter, her patience, her quiet strength. She had always warned me, don't let Michael handle the finances alone. He's too hungry for control. I hadn't listened, and now, her warning had become prophecy. That night, as the hospital lights dimmed, I whispered to myself, they think they've taken everything, but they don't know the truth. Because hidden deep in the records of my life was a secret they had never discovered. A secret that would change everything. Who is Mr. Jackson? I suppose I should tell you who I am, before the story runs away with itself. My name is Harold Jackson, though most folks in Huntsville just call me Mr. Jackson. 70 years old, widower, retired aerospace engineer. I spent 35 years working at Redstone Arsenal, helping design systems that most people never see but rely on every day. Precision was my trade, patience my virtue. When my wife, Margaret, was alive, she used to say I was married to two things, her and my work. She was right. She was always right. Margaret passed away 10 years ago, cancer stealing her in a slow, merciless way. I stayed by her side through every appointment, every sleepless night, every whispered prayer. When she was gone, the house felt like a cavern, echoing with silence. I learned quickly that grief doesn't fade, it just changes shape. I kept her photo on the mantle, her favorite quilt folded neatly on the couch. I kept the condo downtown because she loved it, the view of Big Spring Park, the way the lights shimmered at night. It was our escape, our little piece of joy. That condo wasn't just property, it was memory. I have two children. Michael, my eldest, is 45. He inherited my stubbornness, but none of my patience. Ambition drives him like a motor that never shuts off. He's a financial advisor, always talking about maximizing assets and leveraging opportunities. To him, everything is a transaction. Sarah, my youngest, is 38. She has Margaret's smile, Margaret's kindness. But she's easily swayed, especially by Michael. She wants peace, harmony, and sometimes that means agreeing with her brother even when she shouldn't. I love them both. I raised them both. But love doesn't blind me to their flaws. The surgery was inevitable. Years of stress, years of ignoring the warning signs, years of telling myself I was fine. My cardiologist finally sat me down and said, "Mr. Jackson, if you don't have this bypass, you won't see another Christmas." I agreed. What choice did I have? The morning of the surgery, Michael and Sarah stood by my bed. Michael assured me he'd handle everything. Sarah squeezed my hand and told me she'd pray. I believed them. I wanted to believe them. When the anesthesia took me under, I thought I was leaving my life in safe hands. But waking up to that voicemail proved otherwise. It wasn't just the condo. It was the betrayal. The realization that while I lay helpless, chest cracked open, heart stitched together, my children had signed away something sacred. And the worst part? They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I wouldn't fight back. I may be 70. I may be a widower. I may be recovering from surgery. But I am still Harold Jackson. And I am not done yet. Waking up from surgery, the first thing I remember after the surgery was the weight. Not just the heaviness in my chest, stitched and stapled back together, but the weight of being utterly dependent. I had always prided myself on independence, fixing my own car, mowing my own lawn, balancing my own checkbook. But now, lying in that hospital bed, I couldn't even lift a glass of water without help. The room was dim, the blinds half drawn against the Alabama sun. Machines beeped steadily, reminding me that my heart was still beating, though not entirely by its own strength. My throat was raw from the breathing tube, my body weak from anesthesia. I tried to move, but the nurse pressed me gently back. "Easy, Mr. Jackson. You've just come through major surgery. Rest. Rest." That word again. Everyone kept telling me to rest, as if rest could mend more than flesh. The hours blurred together, nurses checking vitals, doctors murmuring about recovery timelines, the occasional visitor from the hospital chaplain. But my children? They were nowhere to be seen. I told myself they were busy, that Michael had work, that Sarah was planning her wedding. But deep down, I knew absence spoke louder than excuses. Then came the voicemail. I had already listened once, but I played it again, needing to be sure. The lawyer's voice was calm, professional, detached. "Confirming the sale of your condo downtown. Paperwork signed by your children." Each word was a hammer blow. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. The pain in my chest wasn't just surgical, it was betrayal, sharp and unrelenting. I thought back to the morning of the surgery. Michael had stood tall, confident, telling me not to worry. "Dad, I'll handle everything. You just focus on getting better." Sarah had squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with tears. "We'll be here when you wake up." But when I woke, they weren't there. Only the echo of their signatures on papers I never saw. The nurse noticed my trembling hands. "Do you want me to call your family?" she asked. I shook my head. What would I say? That I knew what they had done? That I felt betrayed? That I wasn't the helpless old man they thought I was? No, not yet. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the steady beep of the heart monitor. Each beat reminded me I was still alive, still capable of fighting back. They thought surgery had weakened me. They thought anesthesia had dulled my mind. They thought betrayal would break me. But they were wrong. I whispered to myself, barely audible over the machines. They don't know everything. They don't know the secret. And in that moment, I resolved that recovery would not just be about healing my body. It would be about reclaiming my life. The shocking voicemail. The voicemail played again, its words slicing through the quiet hospital room like a scalpel. "Mr. Jackson, I'm calling to confirm the sale of your condo downtown. The paperwork was signed by your children while you were in surgery. Congratulations on closing." I let the phone fall against my chest, the weight of it pressing against the bandages. My heart monitor beeped faster, betraying the storm inside me. I had always believed betrayal came with warning signs, arguments, distance, cold shoulders. But this was betrayal wrapped in silence, executed while I lay unconscious, my chest open on a surgical table. Michael's voice echoed in my memory. "Dad, I'll handle everything." Sarah's soft reassurance. "We'll be here when you wake up." Instead, they had handled everything in the worst way possible. And when I woke, they were nowhere to be found. I tried to imagine their reasoning. Michael, ever the strategist, probably saw the condo as wasted potential. "It's just sitting there, Dad," he would say. "We could liquidate it, invest the money, make it grow." Sarah, caught between loyalty and persuasion, likely nodded along, convincing herself it was for my benefit. "You'll have more money for medical bills, Dad. More security." But they didn't understand. Or maybe they didn't care. That condo wasn't about money. It was about Margaret. It was about memory. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was personal. They had erased a piece of my life without asking, without even telling me. I pressed the phone to my ear again, listening to the voicemail one more time, as if repetition might change the words. But they remained the same, cold and final. I thought of Margaret's warning, whispered years ago when Michael first started talking about asset management. "Don't let him control everything, Harold. He doesn't see life the way we do. He sees numbers, not memories." She had been right. She was always right. The nurse entered, adjusting my four. "You're looking pale, Mr. Jackson. Do you want me to call your children?" I shook my head. "No, not yet," because I wasn't ready to hear their voices. Not until I had answers. Not until I understood why. I stared at the ceiling, the sterile tiles blurring as tears filled my eyes. I wasn't a man who cried easily, but this wasn't about weakness. It was about loss. Loss of trust. Loss of family. Loss of something sacred. And yet, beneath the grief, a spark of resolve flickered. They thought they had taken everything, but they didn't know the truth. There was more. More than they realized. More than they had touched. And when the time came, that truth would be my weapon. Discovering the condo was sold. The morning after the voicemail, I asked the nurse to bring me my reading glasses. My hands shook as I scrolled through my phone, searching for any trace of communication from my children. Nothing. No missed calls, no texts, no explanations. Just silence. I opened my email, hoping for clarity. Instead, I found confirmation. A message from the real estate office, cheerful and efficient. "Dear Mr. Jackson, congratulations on the successful closing of your downtown condo. Funds will be transferred to the account provided by your children." My stomach twisted. The account provided by your children. Not mine. Not the account I had carefully managed for decades. They had rerouted the money. I tried to sit up, ignoring the nurse's protests. My chest burned, but I needed to see the details. I needed proof. Scrolling further, I found the closing documents attached. My name was there, printed neatly, but the signatures belonged to Michael and Sarah. Power of attorney, invoked while I was unconscious. I had given them limited authority years ago, back when Margaret was alive, just in case of emergencies. I never imagined they would use it against me. I stared at the screen, the words blurring as tears welled in my eyes. The condo was gone. The place where Margaret had laughed, where we had danced in the living room, where we had watched fireworks from the balcony. Sold. Reduced to numbers on a page. And I hadn't even been asked. The helplessness was suffocating. I was tethered to machines, my body weak, my voice barely strong enough to call for water. I couldn't storm into Michael's office. I couldn't confront Sarah face to face. I couldn't even leave the hospital bed. All I had was the truth staring back at me from a glowing screen. I thought of Margaret again. She had always believed in family, always believed in forgiveness. But what would she say now? Would she tell me to be patient, to understand their motives? Or would she tell me to fight, to protect what mattered? I didn't know. The nurse returned, adjusting my four. "You need to rest, Mr. Jackson," she said gently. Rest. That word again. But how could I rest when my children had stolen something irreplaceable? I closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe slowly, evenly. I couldn't let anger consume me. Not yet. I needed clarity. I needed strength. Because this wasn't just about a condo. It was about trust. It was about family. It was about the truth they didn't know, the truth that would change everything. Parents' justification and betrayal. It was 3 days after the surgery when Michael finally appeared. He walked into the hospital room with the confidence of a man who believed he had done the right thing. His suit was pressed, his tie knotted perfectly, as if he had just stepped out of a boardroom. "Dad," he said, smiling faintly. "You look better than I expected." I didn't return the smile. Sit down. He hesitated, then pulled a chair closer. Sarah followed behind him, her eyes downcast, her hands twisting nervously. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I wasted no time. The condo. You sold it. Michael leaned back, crossing his arms. Dad, listen. We did what was best for you. That place was just sitting there, draining money. Taxes, maintenance, insurance. You don't need that burden anymore. Sarah spoke softly, almost apologetically. We thought it would help. You'll have more money for medical bills, for comfort. We wanted to make things easier. I stared at them, my chest tightening not from surgery, but from anger. Easier? You think selling the last piece of your mother's memory makes things easier? You think erasing her presence from my life is comfort? Michael sighed, as if I were being unreasonable. Dad, it's just property. You're too sentimental. We're trying to be practical. Practical. My voice cracked, louder than I intended. The heart monitor beeped faster. Practical is asking me first. Practical is respecting my wishes. Practical is not stealing from your own father while he's unconscious. Sarah flinched at the word stealing. We didn't mean it like that. We thought. You thought wrong. I interrupted. Michael leaned forward, his tone sharper now. Dad, you're 70. You just had bypass surgery. You can't keep clinging to the past. We're securing your future. I shook my head slowly. No, Michael. You're securing your own future. Don't pretend this was for me. Silence filled the room. Sarah's eyes brimmed with tears, but Michael's gaze remained steady, unrepentant. Finally, I spoke again, quieter this time. You've betrayed me. You've betrayed your mother's memory. And you've betrayed yourselves. Because you don't know everything. You don't know the truth. Michael frowned. What truth? I didn't answer. Not yet. They left the room soon after. Michael frustrated, Sarah broken. I lay back against the pillows, exhausted but resolute. Their justification had only deepened the wound. They thought they had taken everything, but they were wrong. Realizing the truth while helpless, the hospital bed felt more like a prison than a place of healing. Every time I tried to move, pain reminded me of my fragility. My chest was bound tight, my breath shallow, my body tethered to machines that beeped and hummed like jailers keeping watch. I had always been a man of action. When something broke, I fixed it. When a problem arose, I solved it. But now, I was helpless. My children had taken advantage of that helplessness, slipping papers under pens while I lay unconscious, trusting them to protect me. I replayed Michael's words in my mind. Dad, you're 70. You can't keep clinging to the past. And Sarah's softer voice. We thought it would help. They believed their betrayal was justified. They believed weakness gave them permission. But weakness is not the same as surrender. I stared at the ceiling, the sterile tiles blurring as I thought of Margaret. She had always been my compass, guiding me when I lost my way. I remembered her voice, steady and sure. Harold, don't let anyone mistake kindness for weakness. You're stronger than you think. She was right. Even here, even now, I wasn't powerless. Because they didn't know everything. Years ago, after Margaret passed, I had discovered something unexpected. Her uncle, a quiet man who lived in Birmingham, had left behind a small fortune in property land parcels, investments, even a second condo tucked away in Nashville. Margaret had never spoken of it, and when the inheritance came to me, I kept it quiet, not out of greed, out of caution. I knew Michael's hunger for control. I knew Sarah's tendency to follow, and I knew that if they discovered the inheritance, they would see it as theirs to manage, theirs to exploit. So I kept it hidden. My lawyer, an old friend named Thomas, helped me secure it under trusts and accounts they couldn't touch. And now, lying in that hospital bed, I realized that secret was my salvation. They thought they had stripped me bare. They thought selling the Huntsville condo was the end of my legacy. But they didn't know about the rest. They didn't know that their betrayal had only touched the surface. I whispered to myself, my voice barely audible over the machines. They think I'm helpless, but I still hold the cards. The plan began to form in my mind. I couldn't confront them, yet not while my body was weak, not while anger clouded my judgment. But when the time came, I would reveal the truth. And when I did, they would face consequences they never imagined. The secret they didn't know. The hospital room was quiet, save for the steady rhythm of the heart monitor. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the secret I had carried for nearly a decade. Michael and Sarah believed they had stripped me bare, that selling the Huntsville condo was the end of my legacy. But they didn't know about the inheritance. They didn't know about the properties Margaret's uncle had left behind. It had been a quiet discovery. After Margaret's funeral, I received a letter from a law office in Birmingham. Her uncle, a man I barely knew, had passed away, leaving behind land parcels, investments, and a condo in Nashville. Margaret had never spoken of it, perhaps because she didn't want wealth to define her life. She was content with what we had. But when the inheritance came to me, I knew it was something I had to protect. Michael was already circling like a hawk back then, talking about asset management and financial growth. Sarah, sweet but impressionable, followed his lead. I knew if they discovered the inheritance, they would see it as theirs to control. So I kept it hidden. My lawyer, Thomas, an old friend from my engineering days, helped me secure everything under trusts and accounts they couldn't touch. He was discreet, loyal, and understood the importance of secrecy. Now, lying in that hospital bed, I realized that secret was my salvation. The Huntsville condo was gone, yes, but the inheritance remained untouched. The land in Birmingham, the condo in Nashville, the investments quietly growing in accounts they didn't even know existed. They thought they had taken everything, but they had only scratched the surface. I imagined the look on Michael's face when he discovered the truth. The frustration, the disbelief. He had always prided himself on being in control, on knowing every detail. But this detail had slipped through his fingers. And Sarah, her tears would be real this time, not the product of persuasion. She would realize that following Michael had led her into betrayal, into shame. I whispered to myself, my voice steady despite the weakness in my body. They don't know the truth. And when they do, it will change everything. Because the inheritance wasn't just wealth. It was leverage. It was justice waiting to be served. The one phone call. The hospital room was quiet. The kind of silence that presses against your ears until you can hear your own heartbeat. I knew I couldn't stay passive. My children thought they had won, thought they had stripped me of everything. But they didn't know about the inheritance. They didn't know about Thomas. Thomas Whitaker had been my lawyer for nearly 30 years. More than that, he was a friend. We had met back when I was still working at Redstone Arsenal, both of us young men with sharp minds and stubborn streaks. He had guided me through Margaret's estate, through the inheritance from her uncle, through every legal twist life had thrown at me. If anyone could help me now, it was Thomas. I reached for the phone, my hands trembling from weakness but steady in purpose. Dialing his number felt like dialing hope itself. The line rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Harold, is that you?" I closed my eyes, relief washing over me. "It's me, Thomas. I need your help." His tone shifted instantly, from casual warmth to professional concern. "What happened?" I took a deep breath, wincing at the pain in my chest. My children sold the Huntsville condo while I was in surgery. They used the power of attorney. I didn't consent. And now I need to make sure they don't touch anything else. Silence hung for a moment. Then Thomas spoke firmly. "Harold, listen to me. They can't touch the inheritance. The trusts we set up are airtight. They don't even know those properties exist. You're protected." I felt a surge of relief, but it was tempered by anger. Protected, maybe, but they've already betrayed me. They've already taken what wasn't theirs. Thomas's voice softened. "I know, and we'll deal with it. But first, you need to focus on recovery. Let me handle the legal side. I'll start the paperwork to challenge the sale. We'll make sure they face consequences." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Thank you, Thomas. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You do what you've always done," he said gently. "You'd fight. You're stronger than you think, Harold, and you're not alone." When I hung up, I felt lighter. The betrayal still burned, but now there was a path forward. A plan. Michael and Sarah thought they had silenced me. But with one phone call, I had reminded myself and them that I was not powerless. The battle had begun. Wedding plans start collapsing. Sarah had always dreamed of a wedding that would honor her mother's memory. Margaret loved flowers, so Sarah planned to fill the church with lilies and roses. She wanted music that echoed joy, vows that spoke of devotion, and a reception where laughter would spill into the night. But dreams are fragile things. They shatter easily when built on betrayal. It began with whispers. The lawyer's office had contacted me, But they had also contacted the bank. Transactions leave trails, and trails lead to questions. Soon, word spread that Michael and Sarah had sold the Huntsville condo without my consent. In a town like Huntsville, whispers travel faster than truth. Sarah's fiancé, Daniel, was the first to confront her. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice tight with frustration. "Your father's condo gone? And people are saying you signed the papers while he was in surgery." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I thought it was the right thing." Michael said. Daniel interrupted. "Sarah, this isn't about Michael. This is about you. About us. How can I trust you if you betray your own father?" The wedding planner called next, her voice hesitant. "Sarah, vendors are asking questions. They're worried about payments. Some are reconsidering contracts. I need reassurance that everything is stable." Stable. That word cut deep, because nothing in Sarah's life felt stable anymore. Meanwhile, Michael tried to contain the damage. He told anyone who asked that it was a financial decision, that I had approved in spirit, that it was for my benefit. But lies unravel quickly when truth is waiting. And the truth was waiting. I lay in my hospital bed, hearing reports from Thomas. "The sale is being challenged," he told me. "The bank is investigating. And Sarah's wedding, well, let's just say the community isn't looking kindly on her right now." I closed my eyes, torn between sorrow and grim satisfaction. I didn't want Sarah's happiness destroyed, but I couldn't ignore the consequences of betrayal. Margaret had always said, "Choices have ripples, Harold. They touch more than just the person who makes them." Sarah's choice, her silence. Her signature was rippling now, tearing through the fabric of her wedding plans, her relationship, her reputation. And Michael? He was scrambling, desperate to keep control. But control was slipping through his fingers, because the truth was stronger than his lies. Parents panic and face consequences. The first cracks in their confidence appeared quickly. Michael had always carried himself like a man untouchable, a strategist who could bend circumstances to his will. But now, the circumstances bent him. Thomas had filed the challenge against the condo sale, and the bank had frozen the funds pending investigation. What Michael thought was a clean transaction had become a tangled mess of legal questions. Michael stormed into my hospital room one afternoon, his face flushed with anger. "Dad, do you realize what you've done? You've embarrassed us. The bank is questioning everything. Sarah's wedding vendors are pulling out. People are talking." I looked at him calmly, my voice steady despite the weakness in my body. "I didn't embarrass you, Michael. You embarrassed yourself. You betrayed me." Sarah stood behind him, her eyes red from crying. "Dad, please. I didn't mean for this to happen. I just wanted to help." I turned to her, softer now. "Sarah, helping doesn't mean signing away memories. Helping doesn't mean silence when you know something is wrong." The panic spread beyond the hospital walls. Sarah's fiancé, Daniel, grew distant, questioning whether he could marry someone who had betrayed her own father. Michael's clients began to whisper, wondering if a man who would exploit his father could be trusted with their finances. Reputation is fragile. Once cracked, it rarely heals. Michael tried to fight back, calling lawyers, spinning stories, insisting that everything had been done for my benefit. But the more he spoke, the less people believed him. Sarah, caught in the storm, began to unravel. She called me late one night, her voice trembling. "Dad, I don't know what to do. Daniel won't return my calls. The wedding planner says vendors are dropping out. I feel like everything is falling apart." I closed my eyes, torn between compassion and resolve. "Sarah, choices have consequences. You followed Michael, and now you're facing the cost. But you can still choose differently. You can still make things right." Meanwhile, Michael's panic grew. He visited me again, his tone desperate. "Dad, tell them you approved it. Tell them you gave us permission. If you don't, everything I've built will collapse." I met his gaze, unflinching. "Michael, everything you've built was on sand. And now the tide is coming in." The consequences were no longer just whispers. They were real, tangible, unavoidable. And for the first time, Michael and Sarah realized that betrayal doesn't end with signatures. It ends with justice. Final justice and emotional ending. The day of reckoning arrived quietly, without fanfare. I was still in the hospital, my body weak, but my spirit steady, when Thomas walked in carrying a folder thick with documents. He placed it on the table beside my bed, his expression calm but resolute. "Harold," he said, "it's time." I opened the folder, scanning the papers. Deeds, trust agreements, bank statements, all proof of the inheritance Margaret's uncle had left behind. Properties in Birmingham, a condo in Nashville, investments that had grown steadily over the years. Assets my children had never touched, never even suspected. Michael and Sarah arrived later that afternoon, summoned by Thomas. Their faces were tense, their eyes wary. Michael spoke first, his voice sharp. "Dad, what's going on? Why did you call us here?" I looked at him steadily. "Because it's time you understood the truth. You thought selling the Huntsville condo was the end of my legacy. You thought you had taken everything. But you were wrong." I slid the folder across the table. "This is what you didn't know. This is what you couldn't touch." Michael's eyes widened as he flipped through the documents. His confidence faltered, his hands trembling. How? How did you hide this?" Thomas answered for me. "Because Harold trusted me. And because he knew you couldn't be trusted." Sarah's tears spilled freely now. "Dad, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." I turned to her, my voice softer. "No, Sarah, you didn't know. But you followed Michael. You signed away something sacred. And now you see the cost." The consequences unfolded swiftly. The bank froze the funds from the condo sale, pending investigation. Michael's reputation crumbled, clients withdrew, colleagues distanced themselves. Sarah's wedding plans collapsed entirely. Daniel broke off the engagement, unable to reconcile her betrayal with the vows they were meant to share. Justice wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was steady, inevitable, like the tide reclaiming the shore. I sat back against the pillows, exhausted but at peace. "You thought I was helpless," I said quietly. "You thought betrayal would break me. But you forgot one thing. I am still Harold Jackson, and I am not done yet." Michael lowered his head, defeated. Sarah sobbed quietly, her dreams in ruins. And I felt Margaret's presence, her voice whispering through memory. "Choices have ripples, Harold. But so does truth." The truth had rippled now, touching every corner of our lives. It had exposed betrayal, delivered justice, and restored dignity. I closed my eyes, the steady beep of the heart monitor reminding me that life still pulsed within me. Betrayal had scarred me, but it had not destroyed me. And as I drifted into sleep, I whispered one final promise to myself. They may have sold one piece of my life, but they will never own my legacy. The community reacts. When you live in a place like Huntsville, secrets don't stay secret for long. The city may have grown into a hub of science and technology, but at its heart, it's still a small town. People talk. They talk in church pews, at the diner over biscuits and gravy, in the barber shop while waiting for a trim. And when they talk, stories spread faster than truth can catch up. I learned this the hard way. It started with a phone call from Pastor Williams. He had been my pastor for nearly 40 years, a man who baptized my children, who stood beside Margaret and me when we renewed our vows on our 50th anniversary. His voice was gentle but heavy with concern. "Harold," he said, "I've heard some troubling things. Folks are saying Michael and Sarah sold your condo while you were in surgery. Is it true?" I closed my eyes, the weight of betrayal pressing down again. "Yes, Pastor. It's true." There was silence on the line, then a sigh. "I'm sorry, Harold. I truly am. People are upset. They don't understand how children could do such a thing. I want you to know the congregation stands with you. Betrayal is heavy, but truth always finds its way." His words were a balm, but they also reminded me of the storm brewing outside the hospital walls. The storm grew quickly. At the barber shop, men shook their heads, muttering about Michael's greed. "Always thought he was too slick for his own good," one said. "Now we know." At the grocery store, women whispered about Sarah. "Such a sweet girl," they said. "How could she betray her daddy like that?" Even at the diner, where I had shared countless breakfasts with Margaret, the waitresses spoke in hushed tones. "Mr. Jackson doesn't deserve this," one said. "Not after all he's done for this town." The community's reaction was swift and unforgiving. Michael's clients began to withdraw, questioning whether a man who would exploit his own father could be trusted with their finances. Sarah's friends grew distant, uncomfortable with the whispers surrounding her upcoming wedding. Reputation is fragile. Once cracked, it rarely heals. Thomas visited me in the hospital, his expression grim. Harold, the town knows. Michael's firm is in trouble. Sarah's wedding vendors are pulling out. The consequences are spreading. I nodded, my heart heavy. I never wanted this, Thomas. I never wanted my children to be humiliated. I just wanted them to respect me, to respect Margaret's memory. Thomas placed a hand on my shoulder. You didn't cause this, Harold. They did. Choices have consequences. And now they're facing them. The irony was bitter. Margaret had always believed in community, in the strength of neighbors supporting one another. She had spent years volunteering at church, organizing food drives, comforting families in need. And now, that same community was rallying around me, offering support, condemning betrayal. I felt her presence in every whispered word, every sympathetic glance. She would have been heartbroken by what Michael and Sarah had done, but she would have found solace in the community's response. One evening, Pastor Williams visited me in person. He sat by my bed, his Bible resting on his lap. Harold, he said, betrayal cuts deep, but forgiveness heals. I don't know if you're ready to forgive your children, but I pray you find peace. I looked at him, my voice steady. Forgiveness may come, Pastor, but trust is gone. And trust is harder to rebuild than any building they sold. He nodded, understanding. Then let truth be your foundation. Build on that. The community's reaction was clear. Betrayal had consequences, not just within family walls, but in the wider world. Michael and Sarah were learning that lesson the hard way. And I was learning that even in the darkest moments, truth has allies. Sarah's plea. It was late in the evening when Sarah came to see me. The hospital corridors were quiet, the hum of fluorescent lights echoing against the linoleum floors. She slipped into my room like a shadow, her eyes swollen from crying, her hands twisting nervously at the hem of her sweater. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I needed to see you alone." I studied her face, the same face that once lit up with laughter when Margaret baked her favorite peach cobbler, the same face that had smiled shyly at her first school dance. Now it was etched with guilt, with fear, with shame. She sat down beside my bed, her shoulders hunched. "I don't know how to fix this," she said. "Daniel won't speak to me. The wedding planner says vendors are pulling out. Everyone thinks I'm a monster. I just wanted to help." Her words hung in the air, heavy and fragile. I took a slow breath, my chest aching from the surgery. "Sarah, helping doesn't mean betraying. Helping doesn't mean signing away memories without asking. You followed Michael because it was easier than standing up to him. But you're stronger than you think." Her tears spilled freely now. I thought Michael knew best. He said it was for you, for your medical bills, for your comfort. I didn't question him. I should have asked you. I closed my eyes, hearing Margaret's voice in memory. Forgiveness doesn't erase consequences, Harold, but it heals hearts. When I opened them again, I looked at Sarah with a mixture of sorrow and love. "Do you want forgiveness, Sarah?" She nodded desperately. "Yes, more than anything. I can't bear the thought of you hating me." I reached for her hand, weak but steady. "I don't hate you. You are my daughter. I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You must learn from this. You must find your own strength, not Michael's shadow." She sobbed quietly, clutching my hand as if it were the last lifeline she had. "I don't know if Daniel will ever forgive me. I don't know if the wedding can be saved." I sighed, my voice gentle. "Maybe it can, maybe it can't. But your life isn't defined by one wedding. It's defined by the choices you make, the lessons you learn. If Daniel truly loves you, he'll see your remorse. If not, then you'll rebuild. You're stronger than you believe." For the first time in days, I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. It was faint, fragile, but it was there. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against my hand. "Thank you, Dad. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll try to earn it." I stroked her hair gently, the way Margaret used to. "That's all I ask, Sarah. Try, learn, grow. And remember, love is not about convenience. It's about courage." When she left that night, the room felt lighter. The wound of betrayal was still there, but forgiveness had begun to stitch it closed. Sarah had pleaded for mercy, and I had given it. Not because she deserved it, but because love demanded it. And in that moment, I felt Margaret's presence again, whispering through memory. "You did the right thing, Harold. Forgiveness is the first step toward healing. Michael's fall. Michael had always carried himself like a man untouchable. He wore his ambition like armor, his confidence like a crown. For years, he had convinced himself and everyone around him that he was the smartest man in the room. But arrogance is brittle. It cracks when pressed too hard. And now, it was cracking. The first blow came from his firm. Word of the condo sale had spread, and clients began to question his integrity. If he'll exploit his own father, one whispered, what would he do with our money? Within weeks, contracts dissolved, accounts closed, and Michael's name became a liability. His boss called him into the office, the conversation short and final. Michael, we can't keep you on. Your reputation is damaging the firm. Effective immediately, you're terminated. Michael stormed out, his pride wounded, his career in ruins. The second blow came from the community. Huntsville is a place where reputation matters more than wealth. People remember kindness, loyalty, honesty, and they remember betrayal. At church, whispers followed him. At the grocery store, eyes turned cold. Even old friends kept their distance. He was no longer Michael the financial advisor, Michael the successful son. He was Michael the betrayer. The third blow came from me. He visited me in the hospital, his face pale, his eyes desperate. Dad, he said, his voice trembling, you don't understand. I was trying to secure our future. I was trying to be smart. I looked at him steadily, my voice calm but firm. Michael, you weren't securing our future. You were securing your own. You betrayed me. You betrayed your mother's memory. And now you're paying the price. His shoulders sagged, his arrogance gone. For the first time, I saw not the ambitious man but the frightened boy beneath. He tried to argue, tried to justify his actions. Dad, you're 70. You just had bypass surgery. You can't keep clinging to the past. I thought selling the condo would give you security. I shook my head slowly. Security doesn't come from money, Michael. It comes from trust. And you've destroyed that. Silence filled the room. Michael's eyes darted away, unable to meet mine. He had built his life on control, on manipulation, on ambition. But now, control had slipped through his fingers. He left the hospital that day a broken man, his career shattered, his reputation ruined, his family's trust gone. I lay back against the pillows, exhausted but resolute. Betrayal had consequences, and Michael was learning that lesson the hard way. Margaret's voice echoed in my memory. Choices have ripples, Harold. They touch more than just the person who makes them. Michael's choices had rippled now, tearing through his career, his reputation, his family. And the tide was still coming in. Healing. Recovery is a strange thing. It doesn't happen all at once. It comes in fragments, one steady breath, one cautious step, one moment of clarity after days of fog. Healing is not just about the body. It's about the heart, the mind, the spirit. As I lay in that hospital bed, my chest bound tight, my body weak, I realized that healing meant more than stitches and medicine. It meant facing betrayal, forgiving where I could, and reclaiming the dignity that had been stripped from me. The nurses were kind, patient with my stubbornness. Mr. Jackson, one said, smiling as she adjusted my fore, you're tougher than most men half your age. I chuckled softly, though the laugh hurt. Toughness isn't about age. It's about surviving what life throws at you. And life had thrown plenty. Each day, I grew a little stronger. I walked the hospital corridors, slow but steady, my hand gripping the railing. Each step reminded me that I was still alive, still capable, still Harold Jackson. But healing wasn't just physical. It was emotional. It was spiritual. I spent hours reflecting on Margaret, on her wisdom, on the legacy she left behind. She had always believed in forgiveness, in resilience, in the strength of love. Her voice echoed in my memory. Harold, don't let bitterness take root. It poisons everything. Choose love, even when it hurts. Sarah's plea had softened my heart. I had forgiven her, though trust would take time to rebuild. Michael's fall had hardened my resolve. He had chosen ambition over family, and now he was paying the price. But even in their betrayal, they were still my children. And a father's love, though wounded, does not vanish. Thomas visited often, bringing updates, encouragement, and companionship. You're healing well, he said one afternoon, his voice steady. The legal battle is nearly over. The condo sale will be reversed. Justice is coming. I nodded, grateful. Justice matters, Thomas. But healing matters more. I don't want to spend the rest of my days angry. I want peace. He smiled. Then you're already winning. The community's support was another bomb. Cards arrived from neighbors, prayers from church members, visits from old friends. They reminded me that betrayal did not define me, that love and respect still surrounded me. One card, written in shaky handwriting by an elderly neighbor, read, "Mr. Jackson, you've always been a pillar of this community. Don't let this break you. We stand with you." I held that card close, tears filling my eyes. Margaret would have loved it. Healing also meant reclaiming my legacy. The inheritance Margaret's uncle had left was not just wealth, it was a reminder that life holds surprises, that love endures beyond death. I resolved to use it wisely, to honor Margaret's memory, to ensure that betrayal did not define the end of my story. One evening, as the sun set outside the hospital window, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, I whispered to myself. They tried to take everything, but they didn't know the truth, and the truth saved me. In that moment, I felt peace. The epilogue. Months had passed since the surgery, since the betrayal, since the storm that nearly tore my family apart. My body had healed slowly, stubbornly, like an old engine coaxed back into motion. The scar across my chest was a reminder of fragility, but also of survival. And now, I stood on the balcony of the Nashville condo, the city lights shimmering below like 1,000 stars scattered across the earth. The air was cool, crisp, carrying with it the hum of life. I breathed deeply, my heart steady, my spirit calm. Michael had moved away. His reputation in Huntsville was in ruins, his career shattered. I heard whispers that he was trying to rebuild somewhere else, starting over in a city where his name carried less weight. I didn't hate him. He was my son. But trust, once broken, is not easily mended. Sarah was rebuilding too. Her wedding had collapsed under the weight of betrayal, but she was learning to stand on her own. She visited me often, her eyes clearer now, her voice stronger. She was no longer Michael's shadow. She was finding her own light. And me? I had reclaimed my dignity, my legacy, my truth. The inheritance Margaret's uncle had left was more than wealth. It was a reminder that life holds surprises, that love endures beyond death. I resolved to use it wisely to honor Margaret's memory, to support the community she loved, to ensure that betrayal did not define the end of my story. I donated to the church, to the food drives Margaret had once organized. I funded scholarships for young engineers at Redstone Arsenal, hoping to inspire the next generation. I invested in the town that had stood by me, that had reminded me of the strength of community. One evening, as I watched the city lights flicker, I whispered into the night. They tried to take everything, but they didn't know the truth, and the truth saved me. I felt Margaret's presence then, as if she were standing beside me, her hand in mine, her voice whispering through memory. You did well, Harold. You chose love. You chose truth. And that is enough. The journey had been painful, filled with betrayal and loss. But it had also been filled with resilience, forgiveness, and justice. I was 70 years old, a widower, a father scarred by betrayal but strengthened by truth. And as I stood on that balcony, the city lights shimmering below, I knew one thing with certainty. They may have sold one piece of my life, but they would never own my legacy. This is more than a story. It's a voice joining many others. If it moved you, add yours in the comments, like, share and follow for more unfiltered journeys. Until next time, stay strong.